What do you do when you realize your life has been a battle for respect, and your marriage is built on manipulation and disregard? I'm Jessica, 29 years old, and I've been working from home for the past few years. My husband Henry and I have been married for 3 years now. Before I transitioned to remote work, I had a consulting role at a large corporation, managing online operations. My decision to switch to freelancing came unexpectedly when I became pregnant, and I chose to leave my corporate job to focus on this new chapter of my life. With my background in marketing, I've been able to secure freelance consulting projects and manage online operations, which has proven financially rewarding. However, Henry doesn't quite understand the nature of my work. He tends to see it as a hobby rather than a legitimate career, often not realizing that I do earn an income. Working from home has allowed me the flexibility I needed during my pregnancy and ensured a smooth delivery of our daughter, Clara. For the first month after Clara was born, I stayed with my parents for support, but Henry urged me to return to our apartment. Despite my plans to stay for 3 months, I agreed to shorten it to just 1. Since moving back home, I've managed to juggle both work and caring for Clara without any financial issues. But one day, my mother-in-law, Ophelia, suggested we live together. While we've always had a decent relationship, I was hesitant about the potential dynamics that could arise. I agreed on the condition that we build a duplex, ensuring there would be space for everyone. To my surprise, my in-laws were thrilled at the prospect of living together, and we quickly moved forward with the idea. I found a construction company that could meet our needs and oversaw the purchase and construction of the property. 6 months later, our new duplex was ready. It had shared spaces, including a common entrance, and a cozy second floor with a small kitchen and living area. The project stayed within budget, which eased my financial concerns. When the house was finished, my in-laws were overjoyed, and their happiness reassured me. Ophelia volunteered to help take care of Clara, which I initially saw as a great support for my work. But soon, my optimism faded. Once we started living together, Ophelia began imposing household chores on me, even during my work hours. She would barge into my office demanding things like, "I'm hungry, make me something right now," or, "Hurry up and do the laundry, there's dust everywhere." She would even guilt-trip me, saying, "If you don't clean, my allergies will act up," or complain about Clara's cries, insisting, "She's so noisy, do something about it." These constant interruptions made it impossible to focus on my work. As a result, I often found myself working late into the night, struggling to meet deadlines while also trying to care for Clara, which started taking a toll on my mental and physical health. When I finally spoke to Henry about Ophelia's behavior, he didn't support me. Instead, he told me, "You're the wife. You should naturally obey." Each time I raised a complaint, his response was dismissive. Even when I tried to explain, "I'm not just playing on my computer, I'm working seriously," he refused to understand. Cameron, my father-in-law, echoed Henry and Ophelia's sentiments, saying things like, "Working from home isn't serious, it's more like a hobby." He and Henry seemed to lack any faith in my work. Their constant skepticism began to erode my confidence. I started to feel worthless and feared that I might eventually be abandoned due to my perceived inadequacies. That one day, when Henry was off from work and everyone was at home, I was working with Clara beside me when Henry abruptly burst into the room with a loud noise. "Come to my parents' room right now," he demanded, completely disregarding Clara, who started crying in response to the disturbance. It seemed deliberate. He must have known Clara was there. Frustrated by Henry and my in-laws' lack of consideration for my work, I comforted Clara and reluctantly headed downstairs. Entering the living room, I found my parents-in-law and Henry engaged in animated conversation. Irritation began to simmer within me, reaching its limit. "What's going on?" I asked calmly, settling down with Clara in my arms. The three of them continued whispering, their secretive demeanor making me uneasy as I waited for them to include me in the discussion. Then Ophelia cleared her throat dramatically and fixed me with a stern look. "You need to leave this house," she declared abruptly. I was taken aback by Ophelia's sudden statement. What did she mean by leave? Was she suggesting I go back to my parents' house temporarily? "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to steady my voice as I stared back at her, searching for an explanation. "It means exactly what I said," she sneered, folding her arms defiantly. I glanced over at Henry, hoping for some clarity, but he just kept smiling placidly. Is he out of his mind, or am I losing mine? I wondered silently. Determined to understand, I took a deep breath and calmly asked Ophelia to explain her statement. Her eyes gleamed with a vindictive satisfaction, and she launched into a diatribe, with a smile that mirrored Henry's. "Every day you neglect the housework, let Clara cry endlessly, and just waste your time playing with your computer and phone. I don't know if you're solely relying on Henry's salary, but you never heed advice, acting like a parasite," Ophelia continued, her laughter ringing out as if she found the situation amusing. "I'm sorry if the housework isn't up to your standards, but I do the essentials, and Clara is well taken care of. She's a calm child," I countered Ophelia's accusations, trying to defend myself. "I can't just abandon my computer and phone, I'm working. Isn't that understandable?" Henry suddenly fixed me with a harsh glare. "Are you cheating or something?" he accused sharply. I stared back at Henry, utterly bewildered by his unfounded accusation. "Yes, Jessica is cheating," Ophelia chimed in, casting a disgusted glance in my direction. Stunned by the accusation, I quickly defended myself. "I'm not cheating. You can see my phone right now to prove it." I reached for my mobile, eager to clear my name, but Henry dismissed my offer with a scoff. "Anyone can fake that, you can't be trusted," he sneered, his words laced with contempt. Realizing that further argument was futile, I reluctantly put my phone back in my pocket. Ophelia, not missing a beat, continued her tirade. "We don't need someone like you here. Parasites like you should leave immediately." Her voice was filled with venom. "Get out now!" she demanded. For a brief moment, I considered leaving with my daughter as the only reasonable option. But one crucial thing stopped me. The duplex house. I had financed it, been involved in every meeting with the construction company, and had overseen its design and completion. I couldn't just walk away from something I'd invested so much into. Besides, the mortgage was in my name, and I doubted Henry's salary alone could cover the living expenses. If I leave, my income leaves too. "Do you think you can manage without it?" I challenged, hoping they would reconsider. Henry scoffed dismissively. "What income? Don't be ridiculous. We've been living off my salary this entire time," he said with complete ignorance. His words almost made me feel sorry for him. With a heavy sigh, I turned to Ophelia. "Dealing with Henry is like taking care of a 6-month-old. Are you up for the challenge? He needs his towels, his underwear, and his pajamas laid out after his bath. His shoes must be polished every day. His shirts need to be perfectly ironed, and his suits need to be pristine and wrinkle-free. If his morning coffee isn't made just right, he throws a tantrum." I doubted Ophelia had the stamina to manage Henry's high-maintenance behavior. "I'm giving you a chance," I said, leaving her with an ultimatum. "I can do a better job than you. You're just playing around," she said, scoffing at my offer. "And besides," she added smugly, "if you leave, he already has someone else in mind." The words hit me like a slap to the face. "What do you mean, Henry?" I demanded, turning my gaze from Ophelia to him. She quickly looked away, and Henry shot her a sharp glance, whispering harshly, "Why did you say that?" Their reaction suggested that, indeed, there was another woman. I fixed Henry with a piercing stare, silently demanding an explanation. Looking uncomfortable, Henry finally spoke, his voice low. "Apparently, I've been seeing a woman named Catherine for a few months now," he admitted. "She's in her early 20s, and she was immediately taken with me. After a business meeting, where she made her feelings clear, we started dating. Catherine is beautiful, poised, and has a great personality," he added with a laugh, almost as if he were proud. I could hardly believe it. Considering Henry's appearance, I couldn't imagine a young woman like that being interested in him. Skeptical, I asked him for proof, thinking, if this is true, I need something to secure my future. Henry pulled up his WhatsApp conversation with Catherine. As I suspected, most of the messages were from him suggesting dates, paying compliments, and making casual small talk. Catherine, on the other hand, seemed cold and distant. Her responses were brief, polite, and professional. There were no emojis, no playful language, just straightforward replies. It was becoming clearer that Henry had likely been exaggerating, or at the very least, lying about the depth of the relationship. Taken aback by Henry's smug expression, I struggled to find words. Quietly, I captured screenshots of the conversation, transferring them to my phone and saving them, just in case they might serve as evidence later. Then I'll leave, I stated firmly. After everything that had unfolded, any warmth I had felt toward Huey had evaporated, and I no longer cared about their reactions. I'm taking Clara with me, I declared, observing Henry and my parents-in-law, seeing Lai pleased by my decision to depart. Henry's demeanor shifted abruptly, his hands dropping to his sides. What are you talking about? You can't raise Cad without any income, he objected sternly. Leave Clara here. Don't be irrational, my parents-in-law chimed in, failing to grasp why I insisted on taking her with me. As far as I'm concerned, I see no reason to leave my daughter in this situation, I argued firmly. I have my own income, and I can't leave her with people who can't adequately care for her. When Clara grows up, she'll work hard and I'll support her, I continued, trying to reason with them. Henry interrupted with nonsensical remarks as I spoke, further frustrating me. Why would I leave Clara? What kind of father does he think he is? My anger. Fueled by Henry's self-centered remarks, oblivious to the repercussions, he's even treating her daughter like a pawn. Fine. Then let's settle custody in court. Get a lawyer ready in the meantime. I'll take care of her. I knew arguing here would only escalate tensions with Henry and my parents, and confident in my decision, I resolved to proceed with legal action without hesitation. Once they acquiesced, I wasted no time in making preparations to leave. Over the next few days, I remained steadfast by my daughter's side, making necessary preparations. I reached out to the construction company that had built her house, laying out my situation in detail. I inquired about reputable real estate agents to sell the property. Nick, the company president, swiftly allied with me, ensuring they would manage everything. True to his word, they arranged a quick and lucrative sale, surprising me with the house fetching a higher price than anticipated thanks to his recent construction, impeccable condition, and prime location. Simultaneously, they secured a suitable apartment for my daughter and me, mindful of my budget constraints, but offering a great place at an affordable rate. I expressed my heartfelt gratitude and wasted no time in preparing for our move. Oh, have you already found a place? Ophelia asked with a hint of amusement as I packed dishes in the living room. Yes, I replied curtly, seeing no reason to elaborate. We'll be quiet without you around, she remarked casually. Well, the one thing I'm grateful for is that you gave birth to Clara. Ophelia chuckled before walking away. Despite her unpleasant demeanor, I'd assessed the apartment, the sofa and dining table which I had purchased seemed too large for the new space, prompting me to decide to sell them. The refrigerator, though slightly oversized, I chose to take with me, marking it with a sticker. I labeled all the furniture and appliances I wanted to keep and snapped photos of the items I planned to part with using my mobile phone. On the day of the move, I deliberately chose a time when Henry and my parents-in-law were out. Henry was at work, and the parents-in-law had been called away to a community event. Armed with the divorce papers Henry had given me, I coordinated with the movers to relocate my belongings. I also arranged for the construction company to handle waste removal for the furniture items I didn't plan to take with me. The move progressed smoothly, and within 2 hours everything was done. A few hours later, I left the house with Clara and began settling into her new apartment. While organizing things, the phone rang. It was Elegia. It was already 5 o'clock in the evening, and I had left before noon, so it seemed she had just realized what had happened. I answered the call cautiously. Jessica, why is the house? And Ophelia's voice came through fluster and loud over the phone. Those things were mine. I got rid of what I didn't need. What's going on? Well, I bought them myself. I have receipts and other proofs of purchase, so there's no need for complaints, I stated with a laugh. Ophelia seems speechless, responding with nonsensical protests. Oh, and I sold the house, so please vacate within a month, I added cheerfully. Ophelia sounded genuinely taken aback. Why would you do that? "The house is in my name since I oversaw its construction and have been paying the mortgage," she tried to argue. But I ended the call before she could say more, my resolve firm. After that, I was bombarded with calls from my in-laws and Henry, but I chose to ignore them all. My focus shifted entirely to settling into the apartment for Clara's comfort, leaving no space for distractions. I also sought legal counsel, ensuring that all future communications went through my lawyer. Months went by, filled with relentless negotiations, and I successfully secured custody of Clara. The reasons were clear. I had financial stability, had been Clara's primary caregiver, and my work-from-home setup allowed me to provide the time and care she needed. Henry, who had assumed custody would automatically be his, was blindsided. His frustration was palpable when he bitterly said, "I never needed that girl anyway," and stormed off, clearly shaken by the decision. The relief of finally enjoying a peaceful life with Clara was immense, but my parents-in-law and Henry still lingered at the house, uncertain of my next move. One day, I received a call from the president of the construction company. With determination, I simply said, "Please evict them," and the president, understanding the situation, chuckled and assured me, "Consider it done," before ending the call. I wasn't sure how he managed to convince Henry and my in-laws to leave, but it seemed like quite the task. A few days later, I received confirmation that they had moved out, and I couldn't help but feel relieved by the efficiency. It was another weight lifted off my shoulders. However, months after the divorce, Henry reached out. By then, the divorce had been finalized, and my parents-in-law had mostly backed off, so I hadn't blocked his number yet. I immediately regretted not changing my number or blocking him sooner. It's been a while. I was just thinking maybe you were starting to miss me," he said, his tone smug. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I felt freer than ever after the divorce, no longer burdened by his presence. Yet, I listened to his words, and he explained that Catherine had dumped him. Apparently, he thought I was his only option left. The way he was dumped was almost comical. Right after our divorce, he went to Catherine and suggested they could be together, but she shut him down coldly, mistaking his professional demeanor for something more personal. He even showed up at her home, resulting in a restraining order from the police. He tried to claim that I had dumped him, but honestly, I had no interest in hearing his version of events. I hung up while he was still talking and promptly blocked him. I also blocked all messages and later changed my phone number, starting fresh and cutting ties with mutual friends. I later heard that after his failed attempt with Catherine, Henry struggled at work. He had conflicts with clients and eventually resigned. Financially, he was in trouble and had started asking people for loans. It seemed like my parents-in-law might be taking care of him, but with his modest income, it was unlikely he had a stable life. As for me, I'm living a fulfilling life with Clara, focusing entirely on our present, and it brings me immense happiness. What do you do when everything you've invested in your home, your marriage, and your future suddenly becomes a battleground? How far would you go to regain control over your life? Jessica's story shows a woman who not only fought to support her family, but also stood up for her rights and well-being in the face of constant manipulation and disrespect. After building a duplex with her husband, Henry, and his family, things quickly spiraled when her mother-in-law, Ophelia, began undermining her work and imposing unrealistic demands. When Henry sided with his mother and accused her of neglecting her responsibilities, Jessica realized she couldn't continue in a relationship where she wasn't valued. This situation shines a light on the emotional and financial manipulation that often goes unnoticed in relationships. While Jessica's work-from-home setup was legitimate and essential for the family, the lack of support and understanding from Henry and his family was a breaking point. It's a stark reminder that being in a marriage doesn't mean sacrificing your sense of self-worth. Jessica's decision to leave was a powerful act of self-preservation. She chose her daughter and her own future over staying in a toxic environment, regardless of the sacrifices she had made in the past. Do you think Jessica's decision to leave was the right one? How would you have handled a situation where your partner and their family don't support you, even when you've invested so much? If you faced similar struggles, remember, your peace of mind and self-respect should always come first. Like this post, subscribe for more stories, and share your thoughts below. How do you reclaim your sense of self in a relationship?
The envelope sat on my kitchen counter like a ticking bomb. Dad's familiar scrawl across the front, his last message to me, delivered 5 years after his death. My hands trembled as I traced the edge of the seal. I'm Brooke, and until today, I thought I knew everything about my father's passing. Funny how life waits until you're settled into comfortable certainties before pulling the rug out. Darling, are you going to open that thing or just stare at it all day? Helen's voice sliced through my thoughts. My mother-in-law had the uncanny ability to materialize at the worst possible moments. Her perfectly manicured nails drumming against my granite countertop. It's private, I said, but she'd already positioned herself beside me, close enough that her Chanel no. 5 made my nose itch. Nothing's private in family, dear. She smiled that razor-thin smile that never quite reached her eyes. Nathan would want to know what it says. Nathan. My husband was probably still at the office, trying to prove himself worthy of taking over his father's law firm. He'd been doing that for the past 15 years. I ripped open the envelope, partly to spite Helen, partly because I couldn't stand the suspense anymore. The letter inside was short, but the bank statement that fell out made Helen gasp. $2 million. Her voice went up an octave. Your father had a secret account? My eyes scanned Dad's words, for my little girl. Use it wisely. Some battles are worth fighting. The date on the letter was 3 days before his heart attack. This could help with the firm's expansion, Helen said, her voice honey-sweet. Nathan's been so worried about the capital investment needed. I folded the letter carefully, tucking it back into the envelope. I need time to think. Think? Helen's laugh could freeze hell. Brooke, darling, you're part of the Parker family now. We support each other. Nathan needs this. Nathan needs a lot of things, I muttered, remembering our argument last night about having children. Another thing Helen had opinions about. I'll call Richard. Helen reached for her phone. We should discuss this as a family. No. The word came out sharper than I intended. This is my inheritance. My decision. Helen's face hardened. You sound just like your father. Always putting yourself first. You barely knew my father. I knew enough. She straightened her designer blazer. He never understood the importance of family loyalty. I hoped you'd be different. The front door opened, and Nathan's footsteps echoed through the house. Helen's face brightened instantly. Perfect timing, sweetheart, she called out. Your wife has some interesting news to share. Nathan appeared in the kitchen doorway, his tie loose, dark circles under his eyes. He looked at the envelope in my hands, then at his mother's triumphant expression. What's going on? Before I could speak, Helen jumped in. Brooke's father left her quite a surprise. Money that could solve all our problems. I watched my husband's face change, hope replacing exhaustion. Really? That's amazing, honey. But it wasn't amazing. It was a test, one I was already failing in Helen's eyes. As Nathan moved to hug me, I caught Helen's calculating gaze over his shoulder. She'd already decided how this would play out. Dad's words echoed in my head, some battles are worth fighting. I hugged Nathan back, but my mind was already racing. This money wasn't just an inheritance, it was ammunition. And for the first time in 15 years of marriage, I wondered if I was finally ready to go to war with Helen Parker. 3 days after the letter arrived, I sat across from Nathan at our dining table, pushing salmon around my plate while he talked about the firm's expansion plans. The excitement in his voice made my stomach twist. Mom's right, you know. This is perfect timing. He reached for my hand. We could finally make the firm what Dad always dreamed it could be. I pulled away, standing to clear my plate. What about what I dreamed it could be? What about the art gallery I wanted to open? The gallery? Nathan's fork clattered against his plate. Brooke, that was just a hobby. This is our future we're talking about. Our future or your mother's vision of it? His jaw tightened. Don't start with that again. The doorbell rang, saving us from another argument. But when I opened the door, there stood Helen and Richard, dressed for dinner. Surprise. Helen breezed past me, Richard trailing behind with an apologetic smile. I brought the paperwork to discuss the investment structure. Of course she did. I shot Nathan a look. Did you know about this? His guilty expression said everything. Helen was already spreading documents across our dining table, pushing aside our half-eaten dinner. Richard's drawn up everything. We just need your signature, dear. I haven't agreed to anything, I said, but Helen waved her hand dismissively. Nathan explained everything to us this morning. We're all so excited about this opportunity. This morning? I stared at my husband, who suddenly found his shoes fascinating. You discussed my inheritance with them without me? Their family, Brooke, Nathan said quietly. They needed to know. Know what exactly? My voice cracked. That you've already decided how to spend my father's money? Richard cleared his throat. Perhaps we should give them a moment, Helen. Nonsense. Helen's smile was steel. Brooke's just being dramatic. Nathan, explain to your wife why this is the right decision. I watched my husband straighten his shoulders, slipping into lawyer mode. The firm needs this investment to compete with larger practices. Dad's health isn't great, and when I take over. When you take over? I interrupted. Or when your mother decides you're ready. Helen's eyes narrowed. That's uncalled for. Is it? My hands were shaking. Like the time you convinced Nathan to turn down that job offer in Chicago? Or when you insisted we buy this house, 3 doors down from yours? We were helping you make the right choices, Helen said. Something your own mother never managed to teach you. The room went silent. Even Richard looked uncomfortable. My mother taught me to stand up for myself, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. Something Nathan never learned from you. Brooke. Nathan stood up, but I was already heading for the stairs. I'm going to bed. When I come down tomorrow, I expect these papers to be gone. I paused at the bottom step. And Nathan? Don't bother coming up tonight. Helen's voice followed me. You're making a mistake, dear. Family has to stick together. I stopped, turned. You're right, Helen. Family should stick together. But I'm starting to wonder which family Nathan's really part of. Later, lying alone in our bed, I heard them talking downstairs. Helen's sharp whispers, Richard's mumbled responses, and Nathan's silence. Always his silence. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Everything okay? You seemed off when we talked earlier. I stared at the message, remembering how Dad used to say that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit when you're not okay. My fingers moved across the screen. Can I come over tomorrow? We need to talk. Her response was immediate. Always, sweetheart. Always. The voices downstairs finally faded. Car doors slammed, engines started. When Nathan eventually came up, he took the guest room without a word. I touched Dad's letter on my nightstand, thinking about his words again. Some battles are worth fighting. But as I lay there in the dark, I wondered if this was still just about the money, or if it had become something bigger, a battle for Nathan's soul. And maybe my own. I hadn't meant to overhear them. I was just dropping off some files at the firm, a peace offering to Nathan after 3 days of cold silence. But Helen's voice carried through the partially open door of Richard's office, sharp and clear as breaking glass. If you can't control your wife, you'll never control this firm. Helen's words made me freeze in the hallway. The inheritance is a test, Nathan. Show me you can handle this, or everything goes to your cousin Michael. Mom, please. Nathan's voice cracked. I'm trying, but Brooke needs to learn her place. I've worked too hard building this legacy to let her destroy it with her artistic fantasies. I pressed record on my phone, hands trembling. What about what I want? Nathan asked. What you want? Helen laughed. Darling, you've never known what you want. Remember that ridiculous dream about becoming a teacher? Thank God I put a stop to that. My chest tightened. Nathan had never told me about wanting to teach. The Chicago job would have ruined everything, Helen continued. Just like that gallery would ruin everything now. Your father and I didn't sacrifice everything just to watch you throw it all away. I'm 40 years old, Mom. And still so naive. Sign those papers, Nathan. Get Brooke's signature. Or I'll make sure Michael takes your place. I backed away from the door, bumping into Richard. He steadied me, his eyes full of something like shame. How long have you known? I whispered. Brooke. How long? He looked away. Helen means well. She just wants control. The word tasted bitter. And you let her have it. Sometimes peace comes at a price. Peace. I gestured toward the office. Is that what you call this? The door opened. Helen emerged first, perfectly composed until she saw me. Something flickered across her face, fear, maybe? Then Nathan appeared, looking like a ghost of himself. Brooke? His eyes widened. What are you? Dropping off those files you needed. I held up the folder, then let it fall. Papers scattered across the floor like autumn leaves. Congratulations on the promotion, Michael. Helen stepped forward. Whatever you think you heard. I heard enough. I turned to Nathan. Did you ever wonder why your father drinks so much at family dinners? Why he can barely look you in the eye? Richard flinched. That's enough, Helen snapped. No, it's not nearly enough. I pulled out my phone, played the recording. Helen's voice filled the hallway. If you can't control your wife. Nathan's face crumpled. Brooke, I can explain. Can you? Because I've spent 15 years watching you chase your mother's approval. 15 years pretending not to notice how she manipulates everyone around her. But this? I stopped the recording. This is who you really are. You're being dramatic, Helen said, but her voice shook slightly. Am I? Tell me, Helen, does Richard know about the trust fund conditions? About how you'll cut Nathan off if he doesn't do exactly what you want? Richard's head snapped up. What conditions? For the first time, Helen looked uncertain. Richard, I'll send you the recording, I told Richard. All of it. Maybe it's time everyone heard the truth. You wouldn't dare, Helen whispered. Watch me. I turned to Nathan. I'm going to my mother's. Don't follow me. Don't call. When you're ready to be the man I married instead of the son she created, you know where to find me. I walked away, their voices fading behind me. In the parking lot, my hands shook so badly I could barely get my key in the ignition. But as I drove away, I felt something else beneath the anger and pain, a fierce, burning satisfaction. Dad's voice echoed in my head, some battles are worth fighting. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about breaking free from Helen's web of control. And for the first time, I understood exactly what kind of battle my father had been preparing me for. My mother's kitchen hadn't changed in 20 years. The same yellow curtains, the same copper pots hanging above the stove, the same smell of coffee and cinnamon. But I had changed. 3 days at her house had shown me that. You're not eating, Mom said, pushing a plate of pancakes toward me. And those headaches are getting worse. I rubbed my temples. I'm fine. Brooke Elizabeth Sanders, you haven't been fine since you married into that family. She sat across from me, her face lined with worry. Have you listened to that recording again? 17 times. I pushed the plate away. Nathan's called twice. Texted 38 times. Helen sent flowers. Manipulation comes in many forms, sweetheart. The doorbell rang. Mom's expression hardened as she went to answer it. I heard Richard's voice in the hallway, quiet and strained. She doesn't want visitors, Mom said. Please. Richard's voice cracked. 5 minutes. I stood in the kitchen doorway. It's okay, Mom. Richard looked older than he had 3 days ago, his shoulders hunched under his expensive suit. He held out a manila envelope. What's that? I asked. Everything. He placed it on the counter. Bank statements. Trust documents. Helen's letters to the board. His hands shook. I should have done this years ago. I opened the envelope. The first document made my blood run cold, a contract dated 15 years ago, just before our wedding. She made him sign it, Richard said. If Nathan ever left the firm or went against her wishes, he'd lose everything. Not just money. His inheritance, his position, even the house. The house is in my name too. Richard wouldn't meet my eyes. Check the deed amendment from last year. I flipped through the papers until I found it. My signature was there, perfect and precise. Except I'd never signed it. She forged this. Helen's always been thorough. Richard's voice was barely a whisper. I enabled it. All of it. The controlling, the manipulation. I thought I was protecting our son, but you were protecting yourself. The pieces clicked into place. That's why you drink at family dinners. Why you never stand up to her. He nodded. I'm a coward, Brooke. But maybe you don't have to be. Mom touched my shoulder. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Nathan's face appeared on the screen, followed by a text, we need to talk. Please. I'm not with her. He's at the park, Richard said. The one where you had your first date. He's been there for hours. I looked at the documents, then at my phone. Why are you doing this now? Because I saw myself in Nathan's eyes that day at the office. The same defeat I've felt for 40 years. Richard straightened his tie with trembling fingers. Helen doesn't know I'm here. She doesn't know about these papers. Use them however you want. She'll destroy you. Maybe it's time someone destroyed her instead. He turned to leave, then paused. He loves you, Brooke. More than the firm, more than the money. He just doesn't know how to prove it yet. After he left, Mom wrapped her arms around me. Whatever you decide, I'm here. I stared at the papers, at Nathan's text, at my father's letter still tucked in my purse. The headache pounded harder. I need to see him, I said finally. Are you sure? No, I wasn't sure of anything anymore. Except that somewhere between Helen's manipulation and Richard's confession, this had stopped being about revenge. Now it was about survival, not just mine, but Nathan's too. I gathered the documents and my phone. I'll be back later. Brooke? Mom's voice stopped me at the door. Remember what your father always said about forgiveness? That it's not about forgetting, but about choosing your own peace. She nodded. Just make sure whatever you choose brings you peace, not more war. I stepped out into the afternoon sun, Richard's revelations heavy in my bag, Nathan's text burning in my pocket. The park was only 10 minutes away, but I knew those 10 minutes would change everything. Nathan sat on our bench by the duck pond, shoulders slumped, tie loosened. He looked like a man awaiting execution. I gripped Richard's envelope tighter, watching him from the path. I didn't think you'd come, he said without turning. I almost didn't. I remained standing, keeping distance between us. Why here? Remember that first date? You said this place felt honest. He finally looked at me. I need to be honest now. Like the honest conversation you had with your mother about my inheritance? He flinched. I deserve that. You deserve worse. I pulled out the forged deed amendment. Explain this. His face went pale as he studied the document. I didn't. I never knew about this. What else don't you know about, Nathan? What else has she done while you played the obedient son? A duck splashed nearby, the sound sharp in the heavy silence. Nathan's hands trembled as he reached for his briefcase. I found these yesterday. He handed me a stack of letters. Mom's been intercepting our mail for years. Job offers, gallery inquiries, even personal letters from your father before he died. The world tilted sideways. I recognized Dad's handwriting on several envelopes, dates from months before his death. She's been watching us, Nathan continued. Controlling everything. The house, the firm, our marriage. Stop. My voice cracked. Just stop. Brooke, please. 15 years, Nathan. 15 years of watching you choose her over me. And now you want to play victim? I was trying to protect you. From what? I threw Richard's envelope at him, papers scattering like leaves. From having my own life? My own dreams? Or from realizing that my husband is too weak to stand up to his mother? He grabbed the falling documents, freezing when he saw the trust agreement. Where did you get these? Your father. Turns out he finally found his conscience. Nathan read quickly, his face darkening. She can't do this. The firm belongs to Dad, not her. Check the last page. He flipped through, then stopped. He signed it over to her. When? 3 months after our wedding. Right after you turned down that teaching position. Nathan stood abruptly, pacing. I'll fight this. We'll get lawyers. We? I laughed bitterly. There is no we anymore, Nathan. You made sure of that when you discussed my inheritance with her before talking to me. I was scared. His voice echoed across the pond. Every decision, every choice, she always made me feel like one wrong move would destroy everything. The firm, our future, our marriage. She didn't destroy our marriage. You did. By letting her. I opened one of Dad's intercepted letters with shaking hands. The date was 2 weeks before his death. My dearest Brooke, I read aloud. I hope this reaches you in time. There are things you need to know about Helen Parker and why I'm leaving you the money. She's not who you think she is. The letter ended there, torn. I looked up at Nathan. Did you read these? He shook his head. I couldn't. I was afraid of what I'd find. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom, Helen's here. She knows about Richard's visit. Your mother's at my mom's house. I gathered the scattered papers. Time to choose, Nathan. Right now. Who are you going to protect this time? He reached for me, but I stepped back. Brooke, wait. No more waiting. No more excuses. I held up Dad's unfinished letter. Whatever Helen's hiding, whatever she did, I'm going to find out. With or without you. You don't understand what she's capable of. Actually, I do. That's why I'm done playing her game. I turned to leave, then paused. You know what's funny? Dad's money was never about the gallery. It was about this moment. About finally seeing the truth. What truth? That sometimes the people we love are the ones who cage us. I met his eyes one last time. The question is, Nathan, are you the bird, or are you the cage? I walked away, leaving him by the pond where we first fell in love. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't check it. I already knew what I had to do next, and it started with finding out what Helen Parker was so desperate to hide. My mother's house was too quiet when I arrived. No lights in the windows, no movement behind the curtains. Just Helen's Mercedes parked in the driveway like a black warning. I found them in the kitchen. Mom sat at the table, hands wrapped around an untouched cup of tea. Helen stood by the window, perfectly composed in her designer suit. The torn pieces of Dad's letters lay scattered between them. "Welcome home, dear." Helen's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Your mother and I were just discussing old times." Mom's face was ash gray. "Brooke, I'm so sorry. I should have told you years ago." "Told me what?" Helen moved to the counter, picking up a familiar envelope. "My father's last letter. That your father was a thief." "Don't." Mom's voice cracked. "He stole from the firm," Helen continued. "Nearly bankrupted us. Richard caught him doctoring the books, but instead of pressing charges, we made a deal." The room spun. I gripped the doorframe. "You're lying." "The money he left you?" "It was compensation." "Hush money, really." Helen's voice dripped false sympathy. "We kept quiet about his embezzlement, and he agreed to leave town. To protect your reputation, of course." "My father would never." "Show her," Mom whispered. Helen pulled documents from her briefcase. Bank statements. Security camera photos. Dad's signature on checks he shouldn't have been able to write. "Why?" I asked Mom. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I asked her not to." Nathan's voice came from behind me. He looked wrecked, tie gone, shirt wrinkled. Mom threatened to expose everything if she spoke up. Helen's composure cracked slightly. "Nathan, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly." He moved past me, placing Richard's trust documents on the table. "Just like I understand why you made Dad sign over the firm. Why you've been intercepting our mail. Why you forged Brooke's signature on the house deed. I was protecting our family." "No." Nathan's voice was steel. "You were protecting yourself. Because Dad wasn't the only one stealing from the firm, was he?" The color drained from Helen's face. "Richard found your offshore accounts," Nathan continued. "The real reason you needed Brooke's inheritance, to cover the money you've been siphoning off for years." I laughed, a harsh sound that surprised even me. "All this time, you've been calling my father a thief while stealing millions yourself?" "Everything I did was for this family." Helen's mask finally shattered. "Your father threatened to expose me. He was going to ruin everything I built. So you ruined him first." The pieces clicked into place. "That's what his last letter was about. He was trying to warn me about you." "The money is yours," Helen said quickly. "All of it. Just destroy those documents, and we can." "We can what?" I pulled out my phone, playing the recording from the firm. Helen's voice filled the kitchen. "If you can't control your wife." "I sent copies to the board 10 minutes ago," Nathan said quietly. "It's over, Mom." Helen's face contorted. "You ungrateful." "Enough." Mom stood, her voice steady. "Get out of my house, Helen. Before I call the police myself. This isn't finished." Helen gathered her briefcase with shaking hands. "Nathan, think about what you're throwing away." "I'm done throwing things away." He took my hand. "Especially my marriage." After she left, the silence was deafening. Mom sank back into her chair, tears finally falling. "I wanted to tell you," she whispered. "Every day for 15 years. I looked at the scattered evidence of 2 decades of lies. My father's reputation destroyed. My marriage nearly ruined. All because of Helen's greed and manipulation. What do we do now?" Nathan asked. I picked up Dad's torn letter, the warning he died trying to give me. The inheritance wasn't just money, it was his last attempt to expose the truth. To give me the weapon I needed to fight back. Now? I met Nathan's eyes. Now we finish what my father started. We bring her down, completely and publicly. It'll destroy the firm, he said. Maybe it needs to be destroyed. I touched the letter. Some things have to break before they can be rebuilt. Mom reached for my other hand. Whatever you decide, we face it together this time. No more secrets. No more secrets. But as I stood there between my mother and my husband, I wondered if we were ready for the truth that was still to come. The Parker mansion loomed before me, its windows dark except for Helen's study. My mother's words from an hour ago echoed in my head. Helen wasn't always like this. She lost everything once, before Richard. That's why she holds on so tight. I pressed the doorbell, Richard's final piece of evidence heavy in my pocket. The door opened to reveal Helen, composed as ever despite everything. I wondered when you'd come. She stepped aside. Richard called. He's turning himself in tomorrow. For covering up your embezzlement? For everything. She led me to her study, where papers and photos littered her usually immaculate desk. Would you like to know why your father really left that money? I know why. To expose you. No. She picked up an old photograph. To protect you from the truth about your mother and me. The photo showed two young women, arms linked, smiling. Mom and Helen, decades younger. My hands trembled as I took it. We were best friends once, Helen said. Until she married your father instead of Richard. The floor seemed to tilt. What? Evelyn was supposed to marry Richard. The merger between our family's firms depended on it. Helen's voice hardened. But she chose love over duty. The scandal nearly destroyed both companies. My father lost everything. So you married Richard instead. I saved both families. Rebuilt everything from scratch. She poured herself a drink. Your father knew. He threatened to tell you, to expose how I forced your mother's silence all these years. The money was his insurance policy. Clever man. She smiled bitterly. He knew I'd never let Nathan marry you if I'd known whose daughter you really were. The study door opened. Nathan stood there, face pale. Is it true? Nathan, Helen started. Answer me. His voice cracked. Did you know who Brooke was when we started dating? I did what I had to do. Helen's mask finally crumbled. Everything I've done was to protect what I built. What I suffered for. I pulled out my phone and the final document. Including killing my father? Helen froze. Richard found the proof. I placed his signed confession on her desk. You knew Dad was going to expose everything. So you made sure he never could. You can't prove anything. The police have Richard's statement. And this. I played a recording, Richard's voice confessing how Helen had tampered with Dad's heart medication. Helen lunged for the phone, but Nathan caught her arm. It's over, Mom. You ungrateful child. She twisted free. I gave you everything. You gave me a cage, Nathan said quietly. And called it love. Sirens wailed in the distance. Helen's face contorted. I won't let you destroy everything I built. She grabbed for her desk drawer. I saw the glint of metal before Nathan did. Helen, don't. The gunshot was deafening. Nathan staggered, clutching his shoulder. Helen stood frozen, the smoking gun trembling in her hand. My own son, she whispered. My own. I tackled her as the police burst in. The gun skittered across the floor, stopping at Richard's feet. He stood in the doorway, looking ancient. I'm sorry, he said to Helen as the officers handcuffed her. I should have stopped you years ago. Later, at the hospital, Mom held my hand while we waited for news about Nathan. I never wanted you to know, she said. About Helen, about Richard, any of it. Did you love him? Richard? Once. But not like I loved your father. She squeezed my hand. Some choices define us. Helen never understood that love isn't about control. The doctor emerged, Nathan would recover. But as I stood to go to him, Mom caught my arm. The question isn't whether you can forgive him, she said softly. It's whether you can build something new from all these broken pieces. I thought about Helen, about Nathan, about all the choices that had led us here. About Dad's last gift, not just money, but the truth that finally set us all free. Some things, I said, have to break before they can heal. The gallery opening bustled with life, my father's inheritance transformed into white walls and polished floors. Through the windows, I could see the last orange leaves clinging to the trees, refusing to let go. Your father would have loved this, Mom said, adjusting a painting, one of Dad's old landscapes we'd found in the attic. He always said you had an eye for beauty in broken things. I touched the frame, remembering the day I discovered his hidden art studio. Did you know he painted? He started after everything with Helen. Said it helped him make peace with the choices we'd made. The gallery door chimed. Nathan stood there, arms still in a sling, looking uncertain in civilian clothes instead of his usual suit. The physical therapist says 2 more weeks, he said, moving closer. The firm's sale goes through tomorrow. Richard told me. I straightened another frame. Are you sure about walking away from it? The firm died with Mom's confession. He studied Dad's painting. Besides, some legacies aren't worth preserving. Helen's trial had been quick, Richard's testimony devastating. She'd taken a plea deal, trading a lighter sentence for full confession of her financial crimes. The truth about Dad's death would haunt us all forever. I got a job offer, Nathan said quietly. Teaching business law at the community college. I smiled, remembering his long-ago dreams. And? I accepted. He touched his injured shoulder. Some wounds remind us who we really are. Or who we could be. The gallery filled with opening night guests. I moved through them, playing hostess, until I found myself in the back room, my private collection. Here hung the pieces that told our real story, Helen's old photograph with Mom, Dad's last letter framed beside his final painting. The trust documents that had started everything. Nathan followed me in. You turned our war into art. Not art. Truth. I touched the glass over Dad's letter. He knew what Helen was capable of, but he still tried to protect everyone, you, me, even Richard. His revenge wasn't the money. It was making sure the truth couldn't stay buried forever. Like mother, like daughter. Nathan's voice was soft. You could have destroyed Helen completely, exposed everything publicly. But you chose justice over revenge. Maybe they're the same thing sometimes. We stood in silence, surrounded by the evidence of our shared history. Finally, Nathan spoke. I miss you. I know. I met his eyes. But I don't miss who I was with you. And who was that? Someone afraid to fly because she might break the cage. I moved toward the door. The gallery opening starting. You should stay. He nodded, understanding what I wasn't saying. We could build something new, maybe. But not yet. Not until we'd both learned to live without cages. The main gallery hummed with conversation. Mom chatted with Richard by the window. They'd found their own kind of peace, decades of secrets finally laid to rest. My phone buzzed, a text from Helen's prison account, the painting of the broken bird. Is it yours? I looked at the piece she meant, hung prominently near the entrance. A bird breaking free of its cage, leaving golden feathers behind. No, I typed back. It's Dad's. His last one. Her response came quickly. He always did understand us better than we understood ourselves. I put the phone away, moving through my gallery, my freedom, bought with truth instead of silence. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new choices. But tonight, surrounded by art born from broken things, I finally understood what Dad had tried to teach me. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about rebuilding yourself from the pieces they left behind. I opened the gallery doors wider, letting in the autumn air. Somewhere in the distance, birds were flying south, leaving their empty nests behind. It was time for all of us to learn how to fly again.
The receipt fell from Marcus's jacket pocket like a whisper of betrayal. $3,000 at Cartier, dated last Tuesday, when he claimed to be working late. I stood in our walk-in closet, the paper trembling between my fingers, while the sounds of Emma practicing piano drifted up from downstairs. My name is Alondra, and until this moment, I'd been living someone else's life. A life where expensive jewelry appeared on other women's necks while I wore the same pearl pendant Marcus gave me on our 10th anniversary. "Mommy, Lucas took my sheet music again." Emma's voice shattered my trance. I crumpled the receipt into my pocket. "Coming, sweetie." My voice didn't crack. 15 years of marriage had taught me how to keep things together, even when they were falling apart. Downstairs, Lucas had scattered piano sheets across the living room floor, giggling as Emma chased him. Nina watched from her playpen, stuffed giraffe clutched to her chest. "Lucas Carter, what did we say about respecting your sister's things?" He pouted, bottom lip quivering. But she wouldn't let me play too. I gathered the sheets, buying time to steady my hands. "Emma's practicing for her recital. You'll have your turn after." "It's not fair," he mumbled, but helped collect the papers anyway. My phone buzzed. A message from Jessica: "Check Vanessa Reed's Instagram now." I waited until the kids were settled, Emma back at the piano, Lucas with his Legos, Nina dozing in her playpen. In the kitchen, I pulled up Instagram, my fingers numb as I typed the name. There it was. Posted 3 days ago, Vanessa at dinner, wearing a diamond pendant that caught the light just so. The caption read, "Sometimes the best surprises come on ordinary Tuesdays." The same Tuesday as the receipt. The room tilted. I gripped the counter, bile rising in my throat. In the background of the photo, just visible, was Marcus's watch, the one I'd given him for Christmas. My phone buzzed again. "Marcus, working late tonight. Don't wait up." I stared at his message, something cold and hard crystallizing in my chest. The Marcus I knew, or thought I knew, was meticulous, careful. He wouldn't make mistakes like leaving receipts in pockets or appearing in social media photos. Unless he wanted to get caught. Unless this was his way of ending things without having to be the bad guy. The piano music stopped abruptly. "Mom? Are you okay?" I turned to find Emma in the doorway, her face pinched with worry. 8 years old and already so attuned to others' pain. Just like I was at her age. "Of course, baby." I forced a smile. "Just thinking about dinner plans." She didn't believe me, I could see it in her eyes, but she nodded anyway. "Can we have pizza?" "Sure." The word tasted like ash in my mouth. "Why don't you help me order?" As Emma scrolled through toppings on my phone, I watched her small fingers move across the screen. She had Marcus's hands, elegant, precise. What else had she inherited from him? His capacity for deception? His talent for hurting the people who loved him most? The diamond pendant in the photo had probably cost more than our monthly mortgage payment. Money that could have gone to Emma's piano lessons, Lucas's speech therapy, Nina's college fund. Money that belonged to our family, now adorning another woman's neck. I kissed the top of Emma's head, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. "Extra cheese?" I asked, as if this were any other Tuesday, as if my world hadn't just imploded. "Always," she said, smiling up at me. In that moment, looking into my daughter's trusting eyes, I made a decision. Marcus wouldn't get to write the ending to this story. He wouldn't get to be the villain or the victim. This time, I would be the one controlling the narrative. And I would make damn sure he regretted every choice that led us here. Emma refused to go to school the next morning. She lay in bed, covers pulled to her chin, face flushed with what I knew wasn't fever. "My stomach hurts," she insisted, but her eyes darted away from mine. I sat on the edge of her bed, noting the dark circles under her eyes that mirrored my own sleepless night. "Did something happen at school yesterday?" She twisted her blanket between her fingers. No. I don't want to go to piano today. Miss Chen always asks about Daddy, and I don't know what to say anymore. The words hit like a punch to the gut. Of course she'd noticed. Marcus had missed her last 3 recitals, each time with a different excuse that even an 8-year-old could see through. What do you mean, sweetie? She asks if he's practicing with me at home, but he's never here anymore. And when he is? She trailed off, lower lip trembling. And when he is? He's different. Like he's not really seeing us. The doorbell rang downstairs, followed by Lucas's excited shriek. Aunt Jessica. I squeezed Emma's hand. We'll talk more later, okay? But for now, let's get ready. I promise I'll pick you up early today. Jessica was in the kitchen when I came down, helping Lucas with his cereal while bouncing Nina on her hip. She took one look at my face and said, "You look like hell." Language, I warned, nodding toward Lucas. Sorry. She wasn't. Coffee's ready. Strong enough to wake the dead, just how you need it. Once the kids were settled with breakfast, Jessica cornered me by the coffee maker. Have you confronted him yet? I shook my head. He didn't come home last night. Bastard. This time she didn't apologize. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, my phone chimed. A text from Marcus, meeting ran late. Crashed at hotel. Taking clients to breakfast. See you tonight. Jessica read over my shoulder and snorted. Hotel receipt should be interesting. Want me to do some digging at the office? You could lose your job. Jessica worked in HR at Marcus's company, 2 floors below his executive suite. Worth it. Besides, I've been documenting some interesting expense reports lately. She raised an eyebrow meaningfully. The implications sank in slowly. How long have you known? Suspected, not known. And I wasn't sure until you showed me that Instagram post. She shifted Nina to her other hip. There's more, Alondra. The company's announcing layoffs next month. Marcus is on the committee deciding who goes. My hands shook as I set down my coffee. And Vanessa? Rising star in marketing. Just got a promotion that several more qualified people were up for. Emma appeared in the doorway, backpack on, watching us with those 2 perceptive eyes. Mom? We'll be late. The drive to school was quiet. In the rearview mirror, I watched Emma stare out the window, her small face troubled. Lucas hummed to himself, oblivious, while Nina dozed in her car seat. After drop-off, I sat in the parking lot, Jessica's words echoing in my head. The company credit card statements would be in Marcus's desk at home. The same desk where he'd proposed 15 years ago, down on one knee, promising forever. My phone buzzed again. Marcus, don't forget the Hendersons' dinner party Saturday. Wear the blue dress. The blue dress he bought to apologize after missing Christmas at my mother's last year. The one that hung in my closet, tag still on, while Vanessa wore diamonds bought with our children's future. I started the car, but instead of heading home, I turned toward the bank. Time to see exactly what else my husband had been hiding in those joint accounts he thought I never checked. Nina, sweetie, I said to my sleeping daughter, let's go see what Daddy's been up to. The teller's face changed when she pulled up our accounts. She glanced at Nina, then back at me, sympathy crossing her features. Mrs. Carter, would you like to speak with our manager in private? I gripped Nina's carrier tighter. Yes, I said, already knowing whatever I was about to learn would change everything. I would. The bank statements spread across my mother's kitchen table told a story of systematic betrayal. $200,000, transferred in careful increments over the past year to an offshore account. Our children's college funds, drained to almost nothing. He's been planning this, I said, my voice hollow in the quiet kitchen. Nina napped upstairs while my mother, Martha, studied the papers through her reading glasses. The transfers started right after his promotion. She tapped a date with her fingernail. When he got control of the family finances. Because I trusted him. The words tasted bitter. Because he said it would be easier if he handled everything. The doorbell rang. Jessica burst in before I could answer it, her face flushed. You need to see this. She thrust her phone at me. Vanessa just posted it 10 minutes ago. A photo of a tropical beach, white sand and turquoise water. The caption read, "Can't wait for our December getaway. Sometimes the best Christmas presents come early." December. When Marcus had told me he had an unavoidable business conference in Singapore. There's more, Jessica said. I overheard Vanessa on the phone. She's looking at houses in the same neighborhood as the Hendersons. Talking about schools. My mother's hand found mine across the table. Alondra. Schools, I repeated. The word echoed in my head alongside Emma's voice from that morning. He's different. Like he's not really seeing us. My phone buzzed. Marcus, running late again. Don't wait up. P.S. Did you get the blue dress altered for Saturday? The rage that had been simmering for days finally boiled over. I grabbed my keys. Where are you going? My mother called after me. To get altered. I drove to Marcus's office building, my hand steady on the wheel despite the thunder of my pulse. The security guard recognized me, waving me through with a smile. Mr. Carter's in a meeting, Mrs. Carter. That's fine. I'll wait. The elevator ride to the executive floor gave me time to smooth my hair, check my lipstick. I looked exactly like what I was supposed to be, the devoted wife bringing her husband a surprise lunch. Vanessa's office was 3 doors down from Marcus's. Through the glass walls, I could see her at her desk, phone to her ear, laughing at something. She wore the diamond necklace. I knocked on her door. She looked up, smile fading to confusion. Can I help you? Actually, I said, stepping inside and closing the door, I'm here to help you. I'm sorry, I don't. The necklace looks beautiful on you. Marcus has always had excellent taste in jewelry. And women. The color drained from her face. You're his wife. Mother of his 3 children. Owner of the bank account that paid for that necklace. I placed the bank statements on her desk. And the house you're planning to buy. She stared at the papers, then back at me. He said he was separated. That the divorce was almost final. There is no divorce. Yet. I sat down across from her. But there will be. The question is, how many careers will it destroy in the process? Are you threatening me? I'm offering you a choice. The same choice I wish someone had offered me 15 years ago. I pulled out my phone, showing her the photo of Emma at her piano recital. Lucas and Nina in their Sunday best. These are the people he's stealing from. The ones who wait up at night, making excuses for why Daddy missed another dinner, another birthday, another Christmas. Her hand went to the necklace. I didn't know. Now you do. I stood up. You have until Saturday to decide what kind of person you want to be. The woman who helped a man abandon his children, or the one who helped stop him. What happens Saturday? The Hendersons' dinner party. Where Marcus plans to announce his promotion to senior partner. I paused at the door. Unless someone reveals where that promotion money really went. I left her there, staring at my children's faces on her desk, the diamond necklace glittering like tears in the fluorescent light. In the elevator, my phone buzzed again. Marcus, where are you? Need you to pick up my dry cleaning before Saturday. I smiled at my reflection in the mirrored walls. Don't worry, darling, I whispered. Everything will be perfect for Saturday. Marcus came home early that night, something he hadn't done in months. I watched from the kitchen as he played with Lucas on the floor, both of them laughing over a tower of blocks. The perfect father, when he remembered to be one. Daddy, watch. Lucas stacked another block precariously on top. Careful there, champ. Marcus's phone buzzed. His smile flickered as he checked it, then quickly turned it face down. Emma sat at the dining table, homework spread before her, stealing glances at this unexpected family scene. Her pencil moved mechanically across the page, but I could tell she wasn't really solving math problems. I picked up your dry cleaning, I said, keeping my voice light. The blue dress was ready too. Perfect. He didn't look up from his phone. The Hendersons are expecting quite a crowd Saturday. Half the board will be there. Including Vanessa Reed? The name dropped like a stone into still water. His hand stilled on Lucas's blocks. What? From marketing. Jessica mentioned she got that promotion everyone was surprised about. The tower crashed. Lucas wailed as blocks scattered across the floor. Marcus stood, brushing invisible dust from his pants. We should discuss this in private. Why? Afraid the children might learn something new about their father? Emma's pencil snapped. Alondra. His voice carried that familiar warning tone. Not now. When, Marcus? After Christmas in the tropics? Or after you buy that house in the Hendersons' neighborhood? He grabbed my arm, steering me toward his home office. Behind us, Emma had abandoned any pretense of doing homework. Who's been filling your head with these ridiculous ideas? He shut the door, but I could still hear Lucas crying outside. The same people who helped you empty our bank accounts? I'm protecting our future. Our future? I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make him flinch. Or the future you're planning with someone who doesn't know you have 3 children? His face changed then, something cold and calculating replacing the mask of concerned husband. You went to see her. I went to see what $200,000 of our children's money bought. Those transfers were legitimate business investments. In what? Diamond necklaces and beach vacations? He stepped closer, using his height to loom over me the way he did when he wanted me to feel small. You're emotional. Making accusations you can't prove. Who's going to believe you over me? The devoted family man who built this life for you? The board might, when they see where their promotion money really went. His hand shot out, gripping my wrist. Is that a threat? No, darling. I smiled, thinking of Vanessa's face when she saw those bank statements. It's a promise. A small gasp made us both turn. Emma stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. Before either of us could speak, she ran. Emma. Marcus called after her, but the sound of her bedroom door slamming echoed through the house. Congratulations, I said, pulling free of his grip. You finally got her to see you clearly. His phone buzzed again. This time, I caught a glimpse of the message preview. V, we need to talk. Now. Fix this, he hissed. Before Saturday. Or I'll make sure you regret it. I thought of the documents Jessica had helped me gather, safely stored with my mother. The text messages. The photos. The financial records. All the evidence of a life carefully constructed on lies. No, Marcus. I walked to the door, pausing with my hand on the knob. You'll regret thinking you could threaten me into silence. Just like you'll regret assuming I'd never fight back. Where are you going? To comfort our daughter. Something you've forgotten how to do. I looked back at him, this stranger I'd spent 15 years loving. Oh, and don't worry about Saturday. I'm sure it will be unforgettable. His phone kept buzzing as I walked away, each notification another crack in the foundation of his carefully built facade. Upstairs, Emma's muffled sobs guided me toward the next battle in this war he'd started. But this time, I wasn't fighting alone. Friday morning brought an unexpected visitor. Vanessa stood on my doorstep, her diamond necklace conspicuously absent. She clutched her designer handbag like a shield. Is Marcus home? Teaching Lucas to ride his bike. I gestured toward the empty driveway. He won't be back for hours. She glanced over her shoulder before stepping inside. I found something you need to see. Nina played in her playpen while Vanessa spread documents across my kitchen counter, the same counter where Marcus had kissed me goodbye that morning. Playing his role of devoted husband. These are transfer records, Vanessa said. Not just from your accounts. From the company's pension fund. My hands shook as I read the numbers. Millions, not thousands. Names I recognized, retirement savings of people who'd worked for the company for decades. He told me it was investment capital, Vanessa whispered. For our future. Our house. Your house, I corrected. Built with other people's futures. The back door slammed. Emma rushed in, face flushed from running. Mom. Lucas fell off his bike and she froze, seeing Vanessa. Emma, go to your room. But Lucas. Now. She went, but not before I saw the recognition in her eyes. She'd seen Vanessa's photos on Marcus's phone. That's your daughter? Vanessa's voice cracked. She looks just like Marcus. I know. I gathered the documents, hands steady now. Why are you really here, Vanessa? The board meeting. Tomorrow morning, before the Hendersons' party. Marcus is presenting the quarterly financials. And these numbers won't match his presentation. She nodded. He doesn't know I found them. Doesn't know I followed him to that cafe last week, saw him with someone from the Cayman Islands. My phone buzzed. Jessica, emergency. Marcus moved the board meeting to today. 3 p.m. The front door opened. Lucas's sobs echoed through the house, followed by Marcus's soothing voice. It's okay, champ. Everyone falls sometimes. Vanessa paled. I shoved the documents into her bag, pushing her toward the back door. Go. Now. She hesitated. Alondra, save it for the board meeting. She slipped out just as Marcus entered, carrying a crying Lucas. His eyes narrowed at the closing door. Who was that? Jessica. Dropping off some papers for Emma's school registration. He set Lucas down, examining his scraped knee. Funny. Thought I saw a different car. Must be the neighbors. I grabbed the first aid kit, kneeling beside Lucas. Let's fix you up, sweetie. Marcus's phone rang. His face darkened at the caller ID. I need to take this. In his office, his voice rose despite the closed door. What do you mean you can't find them? No, check again. The meeting's been moved to today. Lucas sniffled as I cleaned his knee. Daddy said falling means I'm learning. Did he? I smoothed a bandage over the scrape. Sometimes falling shows us who's really there to help us back up. Emma crept downstairs, hovering in the doorway. Mom? Is everything okay? Marcus burst from his office, Ty ask you. Emergency at work. Don't wait up. He didn't kiss me goodbye. Didn't notice Emma's tears or Lucas's bandaged knee. My phone buzzed again. Jessica, board members arriving early. Vanessa's here. She looks scared. Then another message, from my mother, papers ready at the lawyer's office. Just say when. I looked at my children, Emma's knowing eyes, Lucas's healing knee, Nina babbling in her playpen. Thought of all the other families whose futures sat in Vanessa's designer bag, waiting for someone to speak up. Emma, call Grandma. Ask her to watch you and your siblings for a few hours. Where are you going? I grabbed my car keys and the blue dress Marcus wanted me to wear tomorrow. To make sure your father never makes anyone fall again. The dress felt like armor as I headed for the door. Behind me, Emma hugged Lucas close, whispering something that made him smile through his tears. Sometimes falling shows us who we really are. And sometimes, it shows us exactly who we need to become. The boardroom felt colder than I remembered from company Christmas parties. I sat in the back, the blue dress a slash of color among charcoal suits, while Marcus commanded the room from the podium. Our quarterly projections exceed all expectations, he said, clicking through pristine slides. The pension fund investments have yielded unprecedented returns. Vanessa wasn't here. Her empty chair screamed louder than Marcus's practiced lies. My phone vibrated. Jessica, Vanessa's in the hospital. Car accident on her way here. Marcus's driver was involved. The room tilted. I gripped the armrest as Marcus's voice droned on about growth metrics and market penetration. And now, I'd like to address the rumors about unauthorized fund transfers. Heads turned. This wasn't on the agenda. My wife, Marcus's eyes found mine, cold and triumphant, has been experiencing some emotional difficulties lately. Making accusations. Creating false documents. The board chairman frowned. What accusations? She's here now, aren't you, darling? Marcus's smile didn't reach his eyes. Would you like to share your concerns with the board? I stood, papers trembling in my hands. The pension fund? Has been properly managed, Marcus cut in. As evidenced by these notarized statements from our accounting firm. He distributed documents, perfect replicas of Vanessa's evidence, but with different numbers. Different signatures. In fact, he continued, I've recently discovered concerning transfers from our joint accounts to offshore locations. Transfers made by my wife. The room spun. My phone buzzed again, Vanessa in surgery. Documents destroyed in crash. I've already contacted the authorities, Marcus said softly. They're very interested in speaking with you about financial fraud. The chairman cleared his throat. Perhaps we should take a brief recess. I fled the room, heels clicking on marble, Marcus's voice following. As you can see, we're handling this family matter discreetly. In the bathroom, I splashed water on my face. The mirror showed a woman I barely recognized, mascara smeared, lipstick faded, the blue dress suddenly garish under fluorescent lights. The door opened. Jessica slipped in, face pale. Police are in the lobby. Marcus filed charges this morning. The children. Your mother has them. But Marcus filed for emergency custody, claiming financial misconduct. My legs gave out. Jessica caught me before I hit the floor. He planned this, I whispered. The accident, the documents, all of it. There's more. Jessica helped me to my feet. The Hendersons' party tonight? The board will be there. Marcus is announcing a company-wide restructuring. The pension fund will be redistributed before anyone realizes it's gone. The bathroom door swung open again. 2 police officers entered, followed by Marcus. I'm sorry it came to this, darling. His voice carried just the right note of concern. Perfect, like everything else about him. Think of the children. The handcuffs felt like ice against my wrists. As they led me out, past shocked employees and whispers, Marcus's mask slipped for just a moment. I saw what Emma had seen, the stranger wearing her father's face. Your daughter knows, I said quietly as we passed. She'll never forgive you. Something flickered in his eyes. Fear, maybe. Or recognition of what he'd lost. In the police car, my phone buzzed one final time. Through tears, I read Jessica's message. Vanessa woke up. She made copies. But it was too late. Marcus had one. He'd take the children, the money, the carefully constructed life we'd built. By the time the truth came out, the damage would be done. The police station loomed ahead, gray and imposing. Like the walls Marcus had built around our family, brick by brick, until we were all trapped inside. I closed my eyes, seeing Emma's face this morning as I left. She'd hugged me tight, whispering, "I believe in you, Mom." My daughter's faith would have to be enough. Because right now, watching my freedom disappear in the rearview mirror, I didn't believe in anything anymore. Not even revenge. The Hendersons' party sparkled with champagne and success, but the whispers followed Marcus like shadows. 3 hours after my arrest, I walked into their marble foyer, still wearing the blue dress, now accessorized with a police detective's badge. Marcus froze mid-laugh, his champagne flute trembling slightly. "How?" "Your driver confessed." I moved through the crowd, which parted like water. Fascinating story about being paid to run Vanessa off the road. The board chairman appeared at Marcus's elbow. "What's the meaning of this?" "Show them, Jessica." She stepped forward, tablet in hand. On the screen, security footage played, Marcus in the parking garage, handing cash to his driver. The timestamp matched perfectly with Vanessa's accident. "That proves nothing," Marcus said, but his voice had lost its smooth confidence. "The copies prove everything." Vanessa's voice rang out from the doorway. She stood there, arm in a sling, face bruised but determined. "The ones I sent to the SEC before leaving for the board meeting." The room erupted in murmurs. Marcus's face twisted. "You stupid." "The pension fund transfers," I cut in. "The offshore accounts. The falsified documents. The SEC has it all. You're bluffing." But his eyes darted toward the exit. "Emma," I called out. "Show your father what you found." Our daughter emerged from behind Jessica, holding Marcus's laptop. "I remembered your password, Daddy. The one you used for my birthday." The color drained from his face. "Emma, baby. Don't." Her voice shook, but her chin stayed high. "I saw the emails. About the accident. About Mom." The detective stepped forward. "Marcus Carter, we have some questions about attempted murder." Marcus lunged for the door, but crashed into Martha, who'd positioned herself there precisely for this moment. As he stumbled, the board chairman grabbed his arm. "The authorities are very interested in those pension funds," I said quietly. "But I'm willing to make a deal." "A deal?" He spat the word like poison. "Sign over full custody. Return every penny you stole. Walk away from the children you never really wanted anyway." "Or what?" "Or Emma testifies about the emails. About everything she saw and heard. About her father ordering someone to kill her mother's friend." His facade cracked completely. "You bitch. You planned this." "No, Marcus. You did. With every lie, every betrayal, every moment you chose yourself over our children." The detective moved forward with handcuffs, but I held up my hand. "Wait. One more thing." I stepped closer to Marcus, close enough to smell his expensive cologne. "Emma asked me last week why you stopped loving us. I told her you never stopped, because I thought that would hurt less than the truth." "The truth?" "That you never loved us at all. We were just props in your perfect life." "But props can be replaced, can't they? Like that necklace you bought Vanessa." The handcuffs clicked into place. As the detective led him away, Marcus looked back at Emma. She turned away, pressing her face into my side. "I'm sorry," he whispered, but I couldn't tell if he meant it, or if it was just another performance. The board chairman cleared his throat. "Mrs. Carter, about those pension funds. Talk to my lawyer tomorrow." I smoothed Emma's hair. "Tonight, I'm taking my children home." Later, as we drove away from the Hendersons, Emma asked, "Did we win?" I thought about revenge, about justice, about the thin line between them. About a blue dress and a diamond necklace and all the ways love can turn to poison. "No, baby. Nobody wins in things like this. But sometimes." I met her eyes in the rearview mirror, saw her father's features transformed by something stronger than genetics: choice. Sometimes we survive. And that's enough. She nodded, understanding more than any 8-year-old should. In the back seat, Lucas slept peacefully, while Nina babbled at the passing streetlights. Too young to remember the night their father's perfect lie finally shattered. But I would remember. And so would Marcus, in whatever prison cell awaited him. Some lies are too expensive to survive their own truth. The blue dress hung in the donation box, a splash of sky among gray winter coats. Emma helped me sort through the closet, carefully folding each piece of our old life away. Can I keep this? She held up Marcus's Harvard sweatshirt, the one he'd worn on weekend mornings before everything changed. Of course. I watched her clutch it close, understanding some pieces of him were still worth saving. Lucas burst in, brandishing a crayon drawing. Look what I made in therapy. The stick figures held hands, just 4 of them now, standing under a yellow sun. No tall figure in a suit casting shadows over the scene. It's beautiful, sweetheart. My voice stayed steady, even as Emma's fingers tightened in the sweatshirt's fabric. The doorbell rang. Jessica arrived with coffee and news. The pension funds are being restored. The board wanted you to know first. And Marcus? Took the plea deal. 10 years, no possibility of early release. Nina toddled over, arms raised. I scooped her up, breathing in baby shampoo and innocence. Has he asked about them? No. Jessica's voice softened. But Vanessa left something for Emma. She pulled out a familiar velvet box. Inside, the diamond necklace caught the light, each facet reflecting a different lie. Emma touched it gently. It's pretty. It's yours, if you want it. I watched her face, seeing echoes of her father's features transform with something uniquely her own, wisdom. No. She closed the box. Can we sell it? For Lucas's speech therapy? My throat tightened. Are you sure? She nodded, already turning back to the closet. It's just stuff, Mom. Like Daddy. The doorbell rang again. Martha entered with groceries and determination. Everyone's staying for dinner. No arguments. As she commandeered the kitchen, I found myself in Marcus's study. The desk where he'd proposed still held ghosts of our past, pen marks from signed permission slips. Coffee rings from late nights planning futures that never came. Need help? Jessica appeared with a packing box. Just thinking. Dangerous hobby. The revenge. I traced a coffee stain. It didn't fix anything. No. She started emptying drawers. But it showed them the truth. All of them. In the kitchen, I heard Emma teaching Lucas a new piano piece, their laughter mixing with Martha's cooking sounds and Nina's babbling. A different kind of music than the perfect symphony Marcus had demanded. Found something. Jessica held up a photo, creased and faded, Marcus and me on our wedding day, his smile practiced, mine real. Want to keep it? No. I took the photo, remembering that naive bride. She doesn't live here anymore. The last box was almost full when Emma called out, Mom. Lucas got it right. I rushed to the living room. Lucas sat at the piano, tiny fingers picking out Twinkle, Twinkle Little Star while Emma beamed beside him. Listen, he said proudly, playing the sequence again. No hesitation, no stutter. Just pure, imperfect music. Martha appeared in the doorway, wiping tears with her apron. Jessica squeezed my hand. Again. Nina clapped from her playpen. As Lucas started over, Emma caught my eye. We're okay, aren't we, Mom? I looked at my children, Emma's quiet strength, Lucas's determined focus, Nina's joyful innocence. At Jessica and Martha, who'd helped rebuild what Marcus tried to destroy. Yes, I said, and for the first time since finding that receipt, it wasn't a lie. We're better than okay. Later, after dinner and baths and bedtime stories, I found the Harvard sweatshirt folded neatly in the donation box. Emma had placed it there herself, choosing to keep her father's love while letting go of his ghost. Some revenge brings only more pain. But sometimes, between the burning bridges and broken promises, you find something stronger than vengeance, the truth of who you really are, reflected in the eyes of those who choose to stay. I closed the donation box, sealing away the last pieces of Marcus's perfect lie. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fears, new reasons to doubt. But tonight, my children slept peacefully in their beds, their dreams finally their own. And that was the sweetest revenge of all.
I was cleaning Lila's room when I found it, a small black device nestled inside her favorite teddy bear, Mr. Snuggles. At first, I thought it was just a loose button or maybe some stuffing coming out. But when I pulled at the tiny black speck, a wire came with it. My hands trembled as I examined the device, a miniature microphone, professionally made, deliberately planted. My name is Aubrey, and until this moment, I thought I knew what betrayal felt like. I was wrong. Mommy, is Mr. Snuggles okay? Lila stood in the doorway, her 9-year-old face pinched with concern. I quickly tucked the microphone into my pocket, forcing a smile. Just fixing a loose seam, sweetie. He'll be good as new. She nodded, relief washing over her features. Can I take him to Grandma Martha's tomorrow? She said she'd teach me how to make chocolate chip cookies. My stomach clenched. Martha. Of course it was Martha. Who else would go this far? Who else would violate our privacy, our home, our daughter's innocence? Actually, honey, I think we should postpone the visit. Mr. Snuggles needs surgery. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue, but it was better than the truth. But Grandma's expecting me. Lila's lower lip trembled. I know, I'll call her myself. I pulled Lila close, breathing in the sweet scent of her strawberry shampoo. Why don't you go finish your homework? I'll bring Mr. Snuggles down when he's all fixed up. Once Lila left, I methodically took apart the teddy bear, searching for more devices. There weren't any, but that didn't make me feel better. If Martha had planted one here, where else had she invaded our lives? I heard the front door open. Nathan was home. My husband's footsteps echoed through the house, followed by his usual call, anyone home? Upstairs, I responded, my voice steadier than I felt. He appeared in the doorway, loosening his tie. His smile faltered when he saw the dismembered teddy bear. What happened here? I held up the microphone. Your mother happened. What are you talking about? He stepped closer, frowning. That could be anything. Where did you find it? Inside our daughter's teddy bear, Nathan. The one your mother gave her for her birthday. He took the device, turning it over in his hands. You can't just assume. Who else would do this? I stood up, anger finally breaking through my shock. Who else has been trying to control our lives since the day we got married? Keep your voice down, Nathan hissed, glancing toward the hallway. Lila will hear you. Like someone hasn't been hearing everything already? I snatched the microphone back. Your mother crossed a line, Nathan. She's been crossing lines for years, but this? This is illegal. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I once found endearing. Now it just seemed weak. You need to calm down. There has to be a reasonable explanation. Reasonable? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Tell me what's reasonable about bugging our 9-year-old's bedroom. We don't know it was her. Then who? He had no answer for that. Of course he didn't. We both knew the truth, but only one of us was willing to face it. I gathered the pieces of Mr. Snuggles, my mind already racing ahead. If Martha had gone this far, what else had she done? What else was she capable of? "I'm calling my father," I said quietly. "Aubrey, don't. He's a lawyer, Nathan. And right now, I need someone on my side." I pushed past him, still clutching the violated teddy bear. "Because it's becoming very clear where you stand." As I walked away, I heard him call after me, "What are you going to do?" I stopped but didn't turn around. "I'm going to find every bug she planted. I'm going to document everything. And then, Nathan? Then I'm going to make your mother wish she'd never decided to play this game." I spent the night searching our house, room by room, while Nathan slept on the couch. By morning, I'd found 2 more listening devices, one behind the kitchen clock, another taped under our bedroom dresser. Each discovery felt like a fresh slap across my face. The sun was barely up when my phone buzzed. Martha's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring 4 times before answering. "Aubrey, dear." Her voice dripped honey. "I heard Lila won't be coming over today. Is everything all right?" I gripped the phone tighter, picturing her sitting in her immaculate living room, probably wearing one of those pastel cardigans she loved so much. "Mr. Snuggles needed some repairs. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" A pause. "Just long enough." "I'm not sure what you mean." "No?" "Strange. Because I found something interesting inside him yesterday. Something that doesn't belong in a child's toy." "Oh." Another pause. "Perhaps we should discuss this over coffee? I made those scones you like." "I prefer to have conversations without an audience, Martha." The honey in her voice hardened. "I'm worried about you, dear. Nathan mentioned you've been stressed lately. Spending a lot of time on your phone. Coming home late from work." My blood ran cold. So that's her game. Is that what Nathan said? A mother notices these things. We care about our children's happiness. Yes, we do. I watched Lila through the kitchen window, getting into Nathan's car for school. That's exactly why this conversation isn't over. I hung up before she could respond. Nathan came in, adjusting his tie. Was that my mother? Checking why Lila isn't coming over. I held up the bug from the kitchen clock. Want to explain why you've been discussing our marriage with her? He sighed, reaching for the coffee pot. She's concerned, Aubrey. We all are. You've been different lately. Different? I laughed. You mean since I discovered our house is bugged? Since I realized my husband's been reporting on me to his mother? Don't twist this around. He set his mug down hard enough to splash coffee. You're the one staying late at work, always on your phone. I'm working overtime because we're short-staffed. You know this. You know everything about my schedule because I tell you everything. My voice cracked. When did you stop trusting me? When did you start seeing everything as a conspiracy? He grabbed his briefcase. Maybe Mom's right. Maybe you need help. The words hit like physical blows. Help? Your mother is spying on us, manipulating you, and I need help? Look at yourself. He gestured at the dismantled clock, the scattered drawers. You're tearing our house apart. Because it's already torn apart. We're being watched, Nathan. Our daughter is being watched. How can you not see how wrong this is? He moved toward the door, shaking his head. I'm late for work. We'll talk about this later. No, we won't. I blocked his path. Because later, you'll have already called your mother, and she'll have told you exactly what to think. Something flickered in his eyes, doubt, maybe guilt. But it vanished quickly. Move, Aubrey. I stepped aside, watching him leave. Through the window, I saw him pause at his car, phone already at his ear. I knew who he was calling. My own phone buzzed, a text from my father, "Got your message. Coming over now." I looked around our violated home at the evidence of Martha's intrusion scattered across the counter. Nathan thought I was paranoid, seeing conspiracies. But as I picked up another bug, this one from behind a family photo, I realized something worse than paranoia. I'd been blind. Blind to Martha's manipulation, to Nathan's weakness, to the slow erosion of my marriage. Well, I wasn't blind anymore. And Martha was about to learn that she wasn't the only one who could play the long game. I pulled out my phone and dialed. "Hello?" A familiar voice answered. "Sarah? It's Aubrey. Remember that favor you owe me? I need access to the security company's client records. Specifically, anyone who's purchased surveillance equipment in the last 6 months. Because if Martha wanted to spy on me, it was time to find out exactly how deep this rabbit hole went." Sarah's information proved more damning than I'd imagined. Martha hadn't just bought surveillance equipment, she'd hired a private investigator. 3 months of surveillance, all meticulously documented. My stomach churned as I spread the papers across my father's dining room table. "She's been following me." My hands shook as I showed Henry the surveillance photos. Me at work, at the grocery store, having coffee with colleagues. "Look at the dates, this started right after I refused to let her redecorate our house." Henry adjusted his reading glasses, his jaw tightening. "This goes beyond harassment, Aubrey. This is criminal behavior. Dad, there's more." I pulled out my phone, showing him the text from our neighbor, Carol. "Martha's been telling people I'm having an affair with my boss. That's why she hired the PI to prove it. That explains Nathan's behavior." Henry's voice was gentle, but his eyes were steel. "She's poisoning him against you." The doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Nathan's car in the driveway. My father squeezed my shoulder before going to answer it. "Where's my wife?" Nathan's voice carried from the foyer. "Her car's been here all day." "Lower your voice," Henry warned. "You're in my house now." They entered the dining room, Nathan freezing when he saw the scattered surveillance photos. "What is this?" "Your mother's handiwork." I held up a photo of me and my boss having lunch at a cafe. "Tell me, Nathan, when she showed you these, did she mention it was a team lunch? That there were 6 other people at the table?" He stepped closer, picking up photo after photo. These are from a PI? 3 months of surveillance. All because I wouldn't let her redesign our home." I laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. "She's been spreading rumors about me, Nathan. Telling everyone I'm unfaithful. And you believed her." "I didn't." He stopped, color draining from his face as he found the PI's detailed reports. "She said she was worried about you. That you were acting suspicious. And that justified spying on your wife? Bugging our daughter's room?" The front door opened again. "Nathan? Are you here?" Martha's voice, sickeningly sweet. "In here, Mother." Nathan's voice cracked on the word. She appeared in the doorway, perfectly coiffed in her pale blue sweater set. Her smile faltered when she saw the photos. "What's all this?" Don't. Nathan held up a hand. Just. Don't. Darling, I can explain. Explain what? I stood, fury burning away my fear. How you hired someone to follow me. How you planted listening devices in my home. How you've been telling everyone I'm cheating on your son. I was protecting my family. Her mask slipped, revealing something ugly beneath. You've never been good enough for Nathan. I had to make him see. See what? Nathan interrupted. That you're willing to destroy my marriage? My daughter's security? Everything I did for you. No. His voice was quiet, defeated. You did it for yourself. Martha stepped toward him, but Henry moved between them. I think you should leave, Martha. Unless you'd prefer to explain your actions to the police? She straightened, smoothing her sweater. You're all overreacting. Nathan, come with me. We'll discuss this at home. But Nathan wasn't looking at her. He was staring at a photo of Lila at school, clearly taken with a telephoto lens. You followed my daughter? Martha's composure cracked. I needed to know. Get out. Nathan's hands were shaking. Get out before I forget you're my mother. After she left, silence filled the room. Nathan gathered the photos into a pile, movements mechanical. I'll need copies of everything. For the restraining order. Nathan, I started, but he cut me off. Don't. Please. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in months. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I need to fix this. For Lila's sake, if nothing else. As he left, Henry touched my arm. What now? I watched Nathan's car pull away, thinking of all the nights I'd cried myself to sleep, doubting my own sanity. Now? Now we make sure Martha never hurts another family again. Because some betrayals cut too deep for simple forgiveness. Some wounds could only be healed by justice. 3 days after confronting Martha, I found Lila crying in her room. Not the usual 9-year-old tears over scraped knees or playground disputes, but silent, shoulder-shaking sobs that made my heart splinter. Baby, what's wrong? I sat beside her, and she curled into me like she used to when she was smaller. Jessica said. She hiccuped. She said you're going to leave us like her mom left her family. The words hit like a physical blow. Jessica was Martha's next-door neighbor's daughter, and Martha's regular afternoon tea guest. Who told Jessica that? Lila wiped her eyes. She said her mom heard it from Grandma Martha. Is it true? Are you leaving? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Carol, check your email. You need to see this. I held Lila tighter, kissing her head. No one is leaving anyone. Why don't you get ready for bed? I'll be right back to tuck you in. In the hallway, I opened Carol's email. It was a video from her security camera, showing Martha on Carol's porch yesterday. The audio was clear. I'm just so worried about Lila, Martha's voice dripped concern. With Aubrey's situation. The poor child needs stability. Nathan's considering custody arrangements. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. She wasn't just spreading rumors anymore, she was laying groundwork. Building a case against me. The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Paul, my father-in-law, shifting nervously on the porch. In 15 years of marriage, he'd never once visited without Martha. I know it's late, he said when I opened the door. But we need to talk. He pulled out a manila envelope, hands trembling slightly. Martha doesn't know I found these. She's been planning this for months. Inside were printouts of emails between Martha and a family court lawyer discussing grounds for custody evaluation. Fabricated evidence of my instability. Witness statements, all from her coffee circle friends, about my concerning behavior. Why are you showing me this? My voice sounded distant, even to myself. Paul's shoulders sagged. Because I failed Nathan by enabling her all these years. I won't fail my granddaughter too. Dad? Lila appeared at the top of the stairs, clutching Mr. Snuggles. Grandpa Paul? Paul's face crumpled. Hello, sweetheart. Is everything okay? No. Nothing was okay. My mother-in-law was trying to take my daughter. My marriage was in shambles. And somewhere in this mess, I'd lost sight of what mattered most, protecting Lila from all of it. Everything's fine, I lied, forcing a smile. Grandpa Paul just needed to drop something off. Back to bed, honey. After she disappeared, Paul spoke quietly. Martha's having lunch with the lawyer tomorrow. Noon at Le Petit Bistro. I understood what he wasn't saying. He was giving me a chance to get ahead of this. Why now? I asked. After all these years of staying silent? He touched the family photo on our wall last Christmas, all of us smiling, pretending everything was perfect. Because Martha's convinced herself she's protecting our family. But she's destroying it instead. He headed for the door, then paused. Whatever you do next. I'll testify if you need me to. After he left, I called my father. Dad? Remember when you said this was becoming a legal matter? We need to move faster. What happened? I stared at the custody documents, at Martha's carefully constructed web of lies. She's trying to take Lila. Silence, then, I'll make some calls. But Aubrey? This ends tomorrow. One way or another. I hung up and went to check on Lila. She was asleep, clutching Mr. Snuggles, the bear that started all this. I touched the spot where I'd found the first listening device, remembering how angry I'd been. That anger felt quaint now, compared to the cold fury settling in my bones. Martha wanted a war? Fine. But she'd forgotten something crucial. A mother protecting her child was the most dangerous opponent of all. Tomorrow at noon, she'd learn exactly how dangerous I could be. Le Petit Bistro buzzed with lunchtime chatter, but I barely heard it over the blood rushing in my ears. From my corner table, I watched Martha and her lawyer through the decorative partition. Their voices carried just enough. The surveillance evidence is compelling, the lawyer said, shuffling papers. Combined with the neighbor testimonies. And the psychological evaluation? Martha's perfectly manicured nails drummed the table. Already arranged. Judge Harrison owes me a favor. I pressed record on my phone, hidden beneath my napkin. Henry sat beside me, his presence steady and grounding. The restraining order complicates things, Martha continued. Nathan's weakness. Temporary setback, the lawyer assured her. Once we present evidence of your daughter-in-law's instability. My phone buzzed. A text from Carol, Martha's friends are at your house. Something about collecting evidence. The room tilted. I showed Henry the message. Go, he whispered. I'll handle things here. I was halfway to my car when Nathan called. Why is my mother's bridge club going through our house? You tell me. I gunned the engine. You gave them a key, didn't you? Silence. Then, they said they were dropping off casseroles. Because you've been struggling. Struggling? I laughed, harsh and broken. Your mother's at lunch with a lawyer right now, planning to take Lila from us. And you're still believing her lies? What lawyer? What are you? Ask your father. I hung up as I turned onto our street. For cars lined the curb, Martha's faithful followers, no doubt documenting my unstable home environment. They scattered like roaches when I burst through the door. Sandra, Martha's best friend, clutched a notebook. Patricia stood by the stairs, photographing something with her phone. Eleanor rushed past me, face flushed. Looking for evidence? I called after them. Here's some breaking and entering. Harassment. Conspiracy. We're concerned about Lila, Sandra started. No. You're Martha's puppets. And you're all trespassing. They fled, but the damage was done. I found their handiwork upstairs, drawers left open, papers disturbed, photos removed from frames. They'd been thorough, searching for anything that could paint me as an unfit mother. Nathan arrived as I was documenting the invasion. Jesus Christ. Finally seeing it? I gestured at our violated home. Or do you need more proof of your mother's manipulation? He picked up a scattered photo, Lila's last birthday. I talked to Dad. About the lawyer, the custody plans. His voice cracked. How did we get here? You know how. Every time your mother crossed a line, you looked away. Every time she undermined me, you chose her side. And now. My phone buzzed again. Henry, got everything on tape. Martha confessed to fabricating evidence. Coming to you now. And now what? Nathan asked. I showed him the text. Now we end this. But I need to know whose side you're really on. He stared at the birthday photo, at our smiling faces frozen in happier times. I filed the restraining order against her. Isn't that enough? She's trying to take our daughter, Nathan. Legal action, manipulated evidence, false psychological evaluations. She's destroying our family, and you're still trying to find middle ground? His phone chimed, probably Martha, spinning more lies. He ignored it. What do you need me to do? Testify. I met his eyes. Against your mother. Help me protect our daughter. The front door opened, Henry arriving with the recording. Nathan's phone chimed again. The moment stretched, taut with possibility and heartbreak. I can't testify against her, he finally said. She's my mother. And there it was. The final betrayal. The last thread snapping. Then I'll do it alone. I turned away, throat burning. But understand something, after this, there's no going back. You're choosing your mother over your daughter's safety. Over our marriage. Aubrey. Get out. My voice was steady, even as tears threatened. I'll have my lawyer contact you about custody arrangements. The real ones, not your mother's version. As Nathan left, I touched the photo he dropped, our last happy moment as a family. Tomorrow, I'd use Martha's own tactics against her. Tomorrow, I'd fight for my daughter with everything I had. But tonight, I'd mourn what was lost. And prepare for war. The courthouse steps felt endless as I climbed them, clutching my evidence folder. Martha stood at the top with her lawyer, wearing victory like another designer outfit. Behind her, Nathan avoided my eyes. Last chance to be reasonable, Martha's lawyer called down. Drop the harassment claims, and we can discuss visitation rights. Visitation rights. For my own daughter. The words made me stumble, but Henry's hand steadied my elbow. Save it for the judge, he said. Inside, Martha's performance was flawless. Concerned grandmother, worried about her unstable daughter-in-law. Her lawyer presented photos of my ransacked house, the same house her friends had violated. Testimonies about my erratic behavior, watching my daughter's school, documenting conversations, growing increasingly paranoid. Then came the psychiatric evaluation. The one I'd never taken. As you can see, Your Honor, Martha's lawyer gestured at the forged report. Mrs. Wheeler exhibits classic signs of paranoid personality disorder. Objection, Henry started, but the judge was already nodding, examining the fraudulent papers. These are serious concerns, Judge Harrison said. The same judge who owed Martha's lawyer a favor. When Nathan took the stand, I held my breath. This was his chance to tell the truth, to make things right. My wife. He paused, looking at his mother. She's been acting unstable. Accusing my mother of spying, claiming conspiracy. The rest of his testimony faded into white noise. I'd known he was weak, but this? This was betrayal beyond forgiveness. During the recess, I found him in the hallway. How much did she promise you? Full custody? Your inheritance? Aubrey, please. Mom's right, you need help. The only thing I need is for you to tell the truth. I am. But his eyes slid away. You're not well. The surveillance equipment you found, the accusations, the recordings. The recordings! I grabbed my phone, fumbling for the restaurant conversation. The proof that would expose everything. File not found. I checked again. And again. Everything, the recordings, the photos of the bugs, the neighbor's security footage, gone. Looking for something? Martha appeared beside us, her smile razor sharp. Technology can be so unreliable. Phones getting wiped, cloud accounts being hacked. It's tragic, really. The floor seemed to tilt. She'd gotten to my phone. Somehow, she'd erased everything. Back in court, it all unraveled. Without evidence, my claims sounded delusional. Each witness, Martha's carefully coached friends, painted a picture of a woman spiraling into paranoia. Given the evidence presented, Judge Harrison intoned, I'm granting temporary custody to the father, with supervised visitation for Mrs. Wheeler. Pending completion of psychiatric evaluation and treatment. The words hit like physical blows. Temporary custody. Supervised visitation. For my own daughter. Additionally, a restraining order will be issued, preventing Mrs. Wheeler from coming within 500 feet of her mother-in-law. Martha's smile widened. She'd won. Completely. In the courthouse bathroom, I splashed water on my face, trying to breathe. The door opened, Martha, coming to gloat. I want you to understand something, she said, checking her lipstick in the mirror. This was never about Lila. This was about Nathan. About family loyalty. Loyalty? My laugh sounded hysterical even to me. You destroyed your son's marriage. You're traumatizing your granddaughter. I'm protecting them. From you. She turned, mask dropping. You were never good enough for my son. Never part of this family. Now everyone sees what I've always known, you're unstable. Dangerous. The truth will come out. What truth? Your evidence is gone. Your credibility is shot. Even Nathan thinks you're losing your mind. She patted my cheek. Take the psychiatric help, dear. It's your only chance to see Lila again. She left me there, gripping the sink, watching my world crumble in the mirror. Outside, Lila would be waiting. My daughter, who I couldn't hug without supervision. Who would be told her mother was sick, dangerous, crazy. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Need help? Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Carter Park. Come alone. I stared at the message, remembering Martha's smirk, Nathan's betrayal, the judge's condemning words. I had nothing left to lose. Sometimes, rock bottom is where you find your strength. Or where you completely shatter. Tomorrow would decide which. Carter Park was empty at 10 a.m. except for a familiar figure on a bench, Paul, my father-in-law, looking older than I'd ever seen him. I made copies, he said without preamble, holding out a USB drive. Of everything. Martha's emails, bank records, the surveillance equipment purchases. Even the payment to the judge. My hands shook as I took it. Why now? Because yesterday, I watched my wife destroy an innocent woman to control our son. And I watched our son let it happen. A car door slammed nearby. Martha strode across the park, face twisted with rage. Paul! What are you doing? He stood, shoulders straight. What I should have done years ago. You're betraying your family? She reached for the USB drive, but I stepped back. Family? Paul's voice cracked. You destroyed our family. Every time you drove away Nathan's girlfriends. Every time you manipulated him. And now this, falsifying evidence, bribing a judge? I protected him. Protected us. Martha's composure cracked. She was going to take him away, just like all the others. No, Martha. You took him away. From everyone who ever loved him. Nathan appeared at the park entrance, drawn by his mother's rising voice. He froze, seeing us all there. It's over, I said, holding up the drive. Everything's here, the wiretaps, the fake psychiatric report, the bribed judge. Your mother's whole operation. Nathan, darling, Martha started, but Paul cut her off. Tell him, Martha. Tell him about the other women. How many potential daughters-in-law have you driven away? How many lives have you ruined? She's lying to you, Paul, Nathan said, but uncertainty crept into his voice. Mom would never. The teddy bear bug? I interrupted. That was ordered through Maxwell Security. Paid for with your mother's credit card. The fake psychiatric evaluation? Written by her bridge partner's nephew. The judge? Received a generous donation to his re-election campaign 3 days before our hearing. Martha lunged for the drive. I dodged, and she stumbled, mask finally shattering completely. You ungrateful bitch. After everything I've done for this family. Done for this family? Paul's quiet voice cut through her rage. You mean like having our son's college girlfriend committed to a psychiatric facility? Or spreading rumors about his law school sweetheart until she left the state? Nathan staggered like he'd been hit. What? Sarah Martinez, Paul continued. Rebecca Chen. And now Aubrey. All unstable. All dangerous. All driven away because they threatened your control. I did it for you. Martha grabbed Nathan's arm. They weren't good enough. None of them understood family loyalty like we do. Loyalty? Nathan pulled away. You made me think my wife was crazy. You tried to take my daughter away. To protect you. Everything I did was for yourself, I finished. But it's done now. The evidence goes to the ethics board tomorrow. The judge will face investigation. Your friends will be charged with breaking and entering. You can't prove anything. Paul stepped forward. I can. I've watched you destroy lives for 30 years, Martha. I kept quiet, made excuses. No more. Martha's face contorted. She turned to Nathan, reaching for him. Darling, please. But Nathan was staring at the USB drive, at the proof of his mother's manipulation. At the wreckage of his marriage, his family, his trust. I choose my daughter, he said quietly. I choose my wife. Martha crumpled, decades of control slipping away. But I felt no satisfaction, no triumph. Only exhaustion and a deep, aching sadness for the family she destroyed. The restraining order stays, I told her. But this time, it's real. Stay away from my daughter. Stay away from my family. As we left the park, Paul to his car, Nathan to his mother's side despite everything, I realized something. Revenge wasn't about destroying your enemy. Sometimes, it was about finally breaking free. Tomorrow, I'd rebuild my life. But today, watching Martha sob on a park bench, I understood that she'd lost far more than I ever could have taken from her. She'd lost everything. And she had no one to blame but herself. The judge's revised custody ruling sat unopened on my kitchen counter while Lila played in the backyard of our new home. Through the window, I watched her showing Mr. Snuggles, newly restored and bug-free, how to do cartwheels. My phone buzzed. Nathan. Did you get the envelope? Just arrived. I won't contest whatever it says. His voice was tired, heavy with the weight of recent months. You deserve full custody after everything. I watched Lila tumble in the grass, her laughter carrying through the open window. She needs her father, Nathan. Even if I can't trust her husband anymore. The doorbell rang. Paul stood on the porch, holding a cardboard box. Found these while packing up the house, he said, setting it down. Thought you should have them. Inside were photo albums, birthday cards, wedding memories, pieces of a life Martha had tried to erase. And beneath them, a leather-bound journal. Martha's, Paul explained. I think you should read it. Later that night, after Lila was asleep, I opened the journal. Martha's precise handwriting filled pages with familiar names: Sarah Martinez, Rebecca Chen, all Nathan's previous relationships. Each entry detailed perceived threats, planned interventions, calculated destructions. Then I found my name. Aubrey fights back, she'd written. The others gave up, walked away. She's dangerous, she'll take Nathan from me. I can't lose another child. Not after James. I called Paul. Who's James? Silence crackled across the line. Nathan's twin brother. He died when they were 3. Martha. She never recovered. Started seeing threats everywhere. Became obsessed with controlling Nathan, protecting him. Understanding didn't bring forgiveness, but it brought something else: release. Martha wasn't just a monster, she was a broken woman who'd turned her pain into poison. The next morning, I opened the custody ruling. Joint custody, with conditions: Nathan would attend therapy, Martha would maintain the restraining order. And our family counselor would oversee transitions. As I drove Lila to her father's house, she clutched Mr. Snuggles. Is Grandma Martha sick? She asked suddenly. In a way, honey. Sometimes people get hurt inside, and they hurt others because they're scared. Like when I pushed Jenny at school because I was scared of losing my best friend. My throat tightened. Something like that. Nathan waited in his driveway, not our old house, but a small rental across town. Away from Martha's influence. "Dad!" Lila ran to him, bear tucked under her arm. "I found Martha's journal," I said quietly while Lila explored Nathan's new garden. "About James." He stiffened. "I barely remember him." "But Mom." "She remembers everything. Every day, every moment. It doesn't excuse what she did." "No." He watched Lila examining a butterfly bush. "But maybe it explains it. The therapist says." "Nathan." I touched his arm, the first contact in months. "I'm not interested in Martha's healing journey. I'm interested in our daughters." He nodded, understanding the boundaries being drawn. "She's lucky to have you as her mother." "And her father," I added, surprising myself with the sincerity. "When he remembers to be one." That evening, I sat in my new garden, reading Martha's journal one last time. Not for revenge or validation, but to understand the shape of the wound that had nearly destroyed my family. The last entry was recent. "I see now what I've become. What I've lost. Nathan, James, everything. Perhaps this is my punishment, to finally recognize the monster in the mirror." I closed the journal and watched the sunset paint my garden gold. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: co-parenting with Nathan, helping Lila understand, building a life from the ashes of the old one. But tonight, I understood something vital. True justice isn't about making others suffer. It's about breaking cycles of pain before they poison another generation. I took Martha's journal inside, placing it on a high shelf. Not to keep, not to use, but to remember. Sometimes the greatest victory is simply refusing to become what hurt you.